watching Yana TV. And today we have our leadership and expert series, and the guest is Karen Leong, who is an influence expert and an author of Win People Over book. So Karen, thank you so much for joining us today. It is a pleasure to have you here on Yana TV.
Thank you, Yana. It's really a pleasure to be here as well.
And I know that this is your first book.
Yes.
Right? So could you tell a little bit about maybe the journey of writing the book and how did you actually get it out finally into the world, and what have you learned from the whole process?
Maybe I'd share just that my journey is actually a 30-year journey. One of the reasons why I started the book was as a little child, I was a really shy kid.
I can't believe that.
So shy that I didn't know how to make friends, and that's why I didn't have any. My mom even wanted to take me to a psychiatrist.
Aww.
But I was not suffering from any social disorder. I was just shy. And that started to seed for the idea for the book, because since young I've really wanted to know how to be able to make more friends and be more accepted. And so what happened is that I started to experiment with so many different ways on how to influence people.
Well, clearly because you wanted to have friends and be an artist as
That's
a child.
Right. Yes. So most of my attempts backfired, but yet there were some that worked spectacularly. And those that worked really well tend to be really simple. And I started to create a list.
Such a smart girl.
But this list, it's culminated from 30 years of experience. And now in the book, I share 75 simple and powerful ways that you can influence anybody.
Wow, but it's fantastic. I think that it's really very powerful that you actually took basically your entire life to come up with this book, and it's a kind of very much integrated part of who you are.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Because one of my reasons why I'm getting a book out is, for people to be able to not have to go through the journey that I had. If I could help somebody to accelerate the process of influence really fast and make a difference, then that would really be something that I would dream of.
Could you please share with us maybe something, from because you mentioned that you wouldn't want actually anybody to go through what you went. Like, maybe could you share an example of something, what was the most difficult part of it that you really struggled with? And then how did you learn to add some influence elements and actually turn it for the better? Is there a story?
Yeah, I think one of the most difficult things was actually feeling that you were invisible.
Oh,
and yes, because I was just that quiet girl in the corner that didn't know how to reach out and didn't know how to make friends and didn't get invited to the coolest parties.
I know, it's really disappointing that there's no boyfriends, right? At that time, no parties, no boyfriends.
I know, it's like no life.
Yes.
But what was quite interesting was that by taking some actions, there was one day I decided that I had enough, that I really wanted to change my life, and that was the turning point. And since then, I've discovered that, wow, certain things that I have done were truly transformational. And the best way is to read the book.
Well, I'm sure that definitely people check it out. The book is great. I know it's 75 ways. Well, we don't want to ask you about 75 ways, but could you maybe tell me 5 ways for people who are watching this and would like to kind of improve their influence? What could they do?
That's a really good question. So let me just see how I could really
put this together.
Pick some of the ones that I hold dear. So let me start with the first one. That that really people like people who like them. That's one of the biggest things I realized, that when you like somebody, people would naturally like you back. And one of the best things that you can do is just reach out to people and focus on like first.
So you have to like them first.
That's right. So that's the first thing, and that's in fact what the first pillar of influence, which is likability. And secondly, that the second pillar of influence is actually respect. So a lot of people try to influence people either by liking them, by using likability, or using respect. But what is important is that you have to blend both.
Well, otherwise you could be respectable but not likable, or
That's
likable
right.
but not respectable.
That's
right? So
right.
you want to be somewhere in the golden middle, or at the very top, probably.
That's right. So that blend can be done in some really simple ways, and that allows you to be able to influence people not just in the short term, but to build enduring friendships and relationships.
And what would be the simple ways? Like, I mean, I would assume, let's say, maybe for the guy, let's say it's a man who is very respectable, and maybe likability would be, lower. So I guess maybe like smiling more, right? Like one of those things, like being kind of coming across as more approachable. Would that be one of the ways?
So that goes to the third tip.
Oh, I'm going ahead. Okay.
that in fact that you can blend both. So the third tip that I could share with you is, how do you build relationships that are built with depth? If you look at it, that, conversations is one of the greatest connections, the connector that we have with people. And very often people believe that it's the relationships that dictate the conversations you have. So, when I speak at conferences or when I run training programs, around the world, there are many people who tell me that, they, when they speak to their bosses, they speak in a particular way. When they speak with their colleagues, it's yet another way. And, and it's differently. They have different conversations based on the positions of the people they are with. What I want to share with you that is not true. In fact, it is actually the other way around. It is the quality of your conversations with that person that would determine the relationship.
I see. That's a very interesting perspective.
Right.
So instead of basically, like, let's say if you walk into the office and you see the boss, and based on that you see the boss, you start having a particular conversation, the boss, employee, right? You might want to look at the boss and you might want to see, like, I don't know, like another human. Right? And or partner, right?
Correct.
And then you kind of build conversation based on that. And what you were saying is that if people start doing it, then you will be able to build those relationships that are just very different, much more empowering.
Which comes to the fourth point.
Yes.
If I talk about how to really transform your conversations, is that many of us, when we speak with people, for example, in the business setting, we often talk about work.
We do. Work. Yes, absolutely.
That's right. And work is really a very logical kind of conversations. Up here, it's more superficial, it's more transactional. And when we speak with some people who we feel a little closer to, maybe work colleagues, we have a more of a connection, we share our thoughts. So actually it goes a little bit down. And if you feel even more close to somebody, maybe somebody whom you really regard as a friend, we actually start talking feelings or talk about family.
Yeah, like close friends, family members.
That's
absolutely.
right. So what I want to share with you is that, conversations is understanding how to deepen the levels. You start with work, but go down to thoughts, and then finally talk about family.
I love how your voice changes when you talk about it.
That's right. So that's what I call WTF conversations.
WTF?
So that's a tip, when you WTF your conversations, the thing is you allow yourself to build a real heartfelt connection. So don't just talk about work, especially with business associates. Deepen to share about thoughts and also
win their hearts over.
And win their hearts by talking about family.
Wow.
And that goes to my fifth tip.
Yes.
One of the best ways to build, because in my book we talk about 4 steps to accelerate the process of influence. And one of the steps is the art of building rapport. And when you have rapport with somebody, there is an instant connection. And the 5th tip is a really important one, because how you build instant rapport is really to find the common.
How do you do that if you don't know the person? Let's say you meet a person. How do you find the common?
That's the thing. And many people struggle with influencing people who are different from them. We often don't have an issue influencing people which are very similar to us.
Well, it's like we say, we like people who are like us.
That's
right? Everybody does.
So if we are the same gender or we have the same background, we come from the same country, we find it easier. But if somebody looks like they're completely, of a different profile, the gap is really wide. Now, to be a really good influencer is when you can influence anyone, no matter how different they are to you.
Can you imagine if you're just that person who walks into the room and it's like the room stops and looks at you?
So if you built all my tips, so the last tip is it is possible. We have something in common with every single human being. So if you look at this, in my book we talk about conversations, but if you WTF your conversations, when you talk about feelings and family, the thing is you're able to find the common in anybody that you speak with. Because you think about it, we all have parents.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
already something similar. Many people also have siblings or children or relatives. You see, so when we make it personal, when your conversations become personal, it's really easy to find the common.
That's a great point and fantastic tips, Karen. Thank you so much. I mean, guys, if you don't have the book yet, here's the book. Do make sure you go and get it. And today we had Karen Leong, who shared 5 fantastic tips on influence. Do make sure you implement them and you go out there and you just rock the world and become the superstar. And if you do like this video, and I do hope that you do like, please share it with friends. We highly appreciate it. Join our Yana TV community, and we're gonna talk to you next week.
Success is very subjective. It means a lot to different people. But at the end of the day, it's that space where I come back home. And regardless how big my house is, how many cars I have, it's all not relevant. It is that me with myself and how I feel. And the smile that I have put in somebody else's face. And then that person who would write and say, thank you very much. You have impacted me because of the work that you do. And then, I've decided not to commit suicide because of you. And I think that is so powerful.